Hi, my name is Ben Cantil, aka Encanti at DataMind Audio. I am the lead plugin designer for Refractalizer and Refractalizer FX. This has been my baby for years in the making, but has finally been realized to fruition thanks to the amazing programming team at DataMind Audio. When you first load up Refractalizer FX, it loads onto an audio track, but it's important to note that everything you can do in Refractalizer FX, you can also do inside the Refractalizer virtual audio instrument. In fact, the only difference between these two is the logo up on the top and the default preset and how you get audio and MIDI in and out of these two different iterations. So if you'd like to try out really cool live effects in the instrument, you can just stream the audio in with the sidechain input. Or if you'd like to play the audio effect like an instrument, you can just send MIDI into it from an external MIDI channel. And you can see I've already got that routed here in this empty MIDI chain. All right, let's dive into this init preset in Refractalizer FX. At first, it won't look like much. There's this purple line that's moving from the left to the right of the screen. That's actually the record head. And it's moving kind of fast because it is recording quarter notes. And you can see down here at the record size, it says 1/4 for quarter notes. So let me turn the mix down. That's in the lower right-hand corner. So we are just going to hear this guitar loop first without any effects on it. Well, I guess you do see some effects. I've got a little bit of OTT to brighten it up and a little bit of glue compressor, but that's all we're going to do, just some dynamic effects. So you can hear it's a loop that I got off a splice. And what I'm going to do is bring the Refractalizer in now. So at first, it's not going to sound like much. It's really just glitching the first quarter note. How fast is it glitching the quarter note? That is determined by the grain rate. Let's move over to this first module here. You see we have 4 different ones: pitch, rate, length, and amp. So I'm going to turn this up a little bit, and let's go to rate. And by default, the rate is going to be 10 hertz. And I'm going to be able to bring this up. You're going to hear different rates. So you can already hear that you can already do some pretty cool things just by moving this Hertz knob. But because this is a very rhythmic loop, let's morph from a tone to a rhythmic subdivision. That's one of the things I enjoy doing the most in Refractalizer. Make it more of a pluck. We're going to smooth it out a little bit. And let's chill this out a little bit. Let's put on 1/8 notes. Now I'm going to increase the recording size. So now it's recording just 1 bar into the live buffer. So you're hearing 1 bar that's repeating 1/8 notes. So 8 repetitions per recording right now. It almost works a little bit like beat repeat in Ableton. Remember that old effect. So as it's capturing audio, we can move the scan head around if we want to hear different locations. Or we can scan through with this index speed right here. And that's going to give us a very time stretch sound. I'm going to bring down the length right here so we can get these little pulses. And if you hear anything you like to modulate, we can just tie any modulator to it, like this LFO could go on this malt right here. We can do something kind of soft. We can always freeze the index rate by clicking this middle button right here, and we're going to bring the scan back to 0. So let's say we want to jump around to the different beats. We have quantize now. We can turn up the amount, and you see these lines appear, and that's what it's going to quantize to. So now when we're moving through it, we can jump to beats. Yeah, let's do it really nicey. Let's do it nicely. We can alternate the stereo field with stereo eyes. That'll actually sound really nice with the original. So that's sounding really fun, but let's say we want to kind of maybe randomize, maybe jump around and scatter this beat a little bit. We can take one of these LFOs here and change the LFO shape to a sample and hold. And let's say we want it to jump around on like eighth notes, for instance. I'm going to now put this guy on scan, and let's put scan in the very middle here. There we go. And we'll turn up the depth all the way. You see these green dials. By default, it's at 50%, so we're going to turn that up to 100. And now we're jumping around the buffer. Let's also randomize the length a little bit. This might be fun. We're going to go to the length and turn up the random here. So sometimes these are long, sometimes they're short. So this seems like the kind of effect that maybe I'd want to have some control over performance-wise, and this is where the macros come in handy. Now, if you go through all of the presets, you'll find that there are a lot of different macros for all of our different presets. We've made that a convenient way to access these presets without knowing necessarily where everything goes. But you can use this really effectively in performance by, say, I'm going to put this macro onto depth right here. I'm going to turn it all the way down and make the depth all the way up. So when I turn up this macro, the depth goes up on how much it's scanning. But I can also put this macro on scan. I'm going to bring it down to 1. And then when I turn it all the way up, it'll be at 50% like it was before. So you can use this a lot like a virtual MIDI controller. We're going to call this Jumpy. I bet this will sound great, especially with the original. So another feature to not sleep on here are the sidechains. I can hook a sidechain up to something like mult, and that means the volume of whatever's coming in is going to affect the knob. So as we have the input volume moving this, it changes the size. Turn up that depth. You'll notice that when you press stop, the buffer will turn dark. That's because this recording is continuously going like a delay line. But if you wanted to capture the audio so you can play with it more, there's this freeze button. So we're going to play into this for a second, and it's going to record right into the 1 bar. Maybe we actually want to do 4 bars. So I'm going to bring the record side up to 4 bars here. And we're going to hit freeze. And now I can safely press stop, and we have this buffer recorded. So we've frozen this. One cool thing about having multiple buffers is that each buffer can have its own settings. So I can go to this buffer, for instance, and turn up the octave. And when I hit unfreeze, it'll keep recording into it. But let's say I want to experiment with a different size buffer, but I want to keep this buffer just like it is. You can actually add unlimited new live buffers in Refractalizer effects. So we're going to hit this, new live buffer. And our other buffer that's really long with the high pitch is still back here. We'll make it shorter again. So this is our high pitch buffer. And then this is our new buffer that's just a quarter note. And we'll make this a lower octave. Let's turn down the depth of that sidechain a little bit. In fact, let's set up a macro. Oh, that sounds cool. So here we have a lower octave on one live buffer, and this is a quarter note. And then if I move this sample selector up to the top, you see that we have one full bar that's a higher octave. So I can add another live buffer, and we'll make this one a normal octave, and we'll increase the size to a dotted half bar, let's say. So it's 3 different sizes, 3 different octaves. And here's the best part. You can fade between them. So interpolate and watch. Let's make it less crazy. You can look at the multiple buffers in this list icon up here. We go here and we look at the sample pool, and we see that we have 3 live buffers going right here. If you enjoy whatever's in a live buffer at any given time, you can also commit a buffer. So whatever one your sample slider is currently selected, when you hit commit, it turns it into a WAV file that's written to your computer, so you can save that for later. This is great for anyone that's playing around a lot and they really like what they're hearing and they've frozen something, they just want to keep it for later. You can go and explore this now as much as you want, and you can even open it up in the instrument if you want. So now we have a committed buffer, and that is mixing together with the other live buffers. You can move these around. Let's put the committed buffer maybe on the bottom as a wild card. So we go back here and we see this buffer that's not updating because that's just a sample now. And then we can go back to our live buffers. And let's send them in reverse. Oh, that's a great sound. Listen to that. Love that sound. And of course, you can put an LFO onto this if you want. It won't update the graphic, but it'll be going in the background. So far, we've been using Refractalizer effects as primarily a rhythmic chopping instrument, but there's so much more in Granular Synthesis this can do. And by the way, if you're new to Granular Synthesis, let me recommend the Curtis Rhodes book, Microsound. I think it's a book everyone should have on their shelves if you make electronic music. And in that book, Curtis Rhodes explains learning from Xenakis, who was doing granular compositions with an orchestra before you could even do this on computer. And traditionally, Granular Synthesis really likes randomness, like controlled amounts of randomness. Now, we have that here, and if you want to turn things into kind of more of a texture and a cloud rather than a rhythmic sound, that's very easy to do. Let's just send this right in so we get the buffer going. Let's take this one. Let's bring the octave down. And now I'm going to randomize the pitch. But here's the thing about random. If I was to say a random pitch, you can really just hum any pitch. It doesn't need to be A440. It doesn't need to be equal temperament. So what we've done is we've actually given some options for what scale you'd like to have your random pitches in. For a chord progression like this, I normally like to do octaves. And so when I turn this up, you're going to hear random octaves playing back. And this can sound really fun and cloudy, especially if it's going really fast. We can also randomize the rate so it's not so rhythmic. We can turn down the quantize. There we go. And let's randomize the length. There we go. And this is where we might want to put a compressor on it. Another way to get randomness is spray. Now, when you turn up spray, it's a little bit different from randomizing the rate. It randomizes the scan position, but relative to the current scan position. And it does this separately for the left and right channel. So spray is a great way for making things sound a little bit more stereo. Let's turn this up and really make a cloud out of this. Wow. And remember, we're still playing this. Another thing we've added to Refractalizer is the ability to feed back the mix back into the live buffer. Now, this is where Refractalizer truly earns its name, because you can re-refractalize any output here. And you can do this in the instrument too. So if you like the sound the instrument's making, you can just feed it back into a live buffer and keep granulating it if you want. So if we turn this feedback up, then all of these high pitch and low pitch samples will go back into the buffer. It'll get mixed back in, and that means that it'll in turn be mixed high and low. So you'll get this kind of a grain delay effect out of this. And when you combine this with reverb, that's when it really comes together. There we go. Back to normal right there. Now let's look into another way to explore the rate. We've done rhythmic chopping and now we've done textures, but what about tones? That's really the unique thing about Refractalizer, the instrument and the effect, is that you can morph cleanly between these different domains. Tones, as many of you know, are the same as rhythms. Rhythms and tones are the same thing. They're just at different frequency scales. So A440, for instance, is anything that's happening 440 times a second. You can take a kick drum and repeat it 440 times a second, and you will hear A440. Likewise, you can take any sound and repeat it only once a second, and then you get, of course, 60 beats per minute quarter notes. So both measurements, subdivisions of the BPM and frequency, are the same thing, but different domains. One you hear as a tone, the other you hear as a rhythm. I was always really interested in this tendency. So we built this ability to morph between those domains into Refractalizer and Refractalizer FX. Now in Refractalizer FX, if you want to control the grain rate with a MIDI keyboard or any kind of MIDI input, all you have to do is turn up key track. Now, like I said, this is not a toggle. You can slide between tones and rhythms and back. And you see, as you move this, whatever you have selected over here gets grayed out. So as we turn up key track, we're going to gray out the control there. We're going to go into tracking the key. So let me send some notes into this. All right, I'm going to turn up the key track. Here we go. Yeah, that's me playing the keyboard. And we can always go right back down to your rhythmic subdivision. But you'll notice really quickly that this can get annoying because it's just droning this note. And that's why we've added this VCA. So let's turn up the VCA. And then all of a sudden it's gone. What's a VCA? It's a fancy term for an amplitude envelope. So when you turn this up all the way, now when I play a note, it opens up an amplitude envelope, which is by default on envelope 1. So let's give this a little release, shall we? There we go. And remember, we're still playing this. Let's make the recording head a little bit faster. Let's make this. Let's turn up the mult a little bit. It's worth mentioning that the mult right here is a multiple of the grain rate. So it scales when you change the rate between rhythmic and tonal time domains. And that's why we have the link button right here. If we turn that off, then the length becomes completely independent, either measured in milliseconds or in terms of rhythm. So when we're trying to do these morphs, I recommend keeping this link on. Mult at just 1 means that as soon as one grain window is over, then that's when another one starts. But I like a little overlap, so we can bring that up to 2. Makes a really nice full tone. See, if you bring up mult a lot, it's playing a lot more of the sample through, so you can actually hear that sample coming through. Of course, there's a lot of overlap, so you have to mind your levels here. Maybe you've turned down our master. That's why we put a limiter on there. Now let's think about maybe playing a chord progression. Let me turn up poly, for instance. And now we can play, let's say, 6 notes at once. So let's try that. You can think of Refractalizer in this sense as like an infinite wavetable. I mean, it's reading from very small portions of audio, just like a wavetable. And now once you're here, maybe you freeze it. Maybe you find a spot that you like that's pretty good. Or right here. Freeze is something you can always map to MIDI. And then once you've frozen it, you can really have a real predictable tone, but you can also still scan around. I think it sounds a little bit better when you use the scan index. But I think it also sounds better when you bring it down to hand, because at this point you're truly relying on the wave for the timbre. So one thing you'll notice when you use the scan index is that it kind of changes pitch, and that's why we've put delta in here. Delta corrects for that almost a Doppler effect from moving forward while doing even repetitions at tonal rate. So you still get kind of a helicopter sound, but it stays in better pitch. So one thing I like to do if I want to give it kind of a modulation sound is I like to put an LFO. that's without any effects on it or anything. We're just scanning through a waveform. Now, once you've gotten this far, now you might want to do a little bit more synthesis. So one thing that we can do is we can go over to our filter section, and we have 2 filters built in. You can turn them on here, and then you can decide if you want them in parallel or serial. Let's actually just start with one, and let's check out some of the new filters we have. One filter that I'm especially really excited about is our multi-notch and our multi-peak, actually. And our new formant filter is pretty cool too. But let's check out this multi-notch for a second. Looks like this. And of course, we can put our own envelopes on it. We can move it just like any old synthesizer. There we go. And let's go ahead and stretch that out a little bit with a little release. Now that we're using our effect as an instrument, I want to show you some things that you can do inside the instrument as well. One exciting thing about Refractalizer and Refractalizer effects is that you can load as many samples as you want or as many live buffers as you want. Well, until your RAM explodes. We have no guardrails. So included with Refractalizer and Refractalizer effects is a great samples folder. If we go to load samples, we go straight there. And I'm really excited to include some samples by my friend Halfred. In here under Halfred Fully, we have all of these little samples, like these little clicky sounds and stuff like that. And the cool thing about Refractalizer is that you don't even need to load individual samples. I can load entire folders. So let's load that one with Water Pop and Mouth Perk and Single Bubbles, for instance. Let's load those. Maybe Woody as well. Open. And we're loading now maybe 100 samples, and they're all here. Look, you can just scroll down and see them all. And now, of course, we can access all of these samples. And remember, you can do this in Refractalizer the instrument or Refractalizer effects. They're the same thing. So we go back into here, and now we can access all these right here with our infinite sample selector. And once we're in here, because we are playing this back now with our keyboard, we can use all of these tasty transients. Let's just put our playback head there. That sounds great, but let's move. Oh, let's turn this down too. I'm going to now pull up the multi-peak filter, and let's bring up that separation. You can get kind of a mouthy sound. Yeah, let's add a little LFO to that as well, to the separation. That might be interesting. And maybe it would be interesting to smoothly move back to a rhythm. Yeah, let's try this, for instance. Do it a little faster. Now let's do that while changing samples. You can have a lot of fun here. And since we're in the effects version, we can always go back to playing whatever is in our effects channel. Let's play it one more time. And back to our live buffer. Unfreeze. So one question I got at my workshop yesterday was, how do you freeze time if you're trying to do a performance? So let's work through a patch right here. What if I wanted to smoothly be performing and then freeze time. I'll work through this patch. This is a new guitar sound here. And let's turn up the mix again. We're back to our init preset. So what I would do for a nice performance patch is perhaps go to Refractalizer and first of all put it into like a group and maybe put mix and freeze live buffer on the same macro. Let's just do that real quick. And this onto the same one. We'll call this freeze. And so now when I turn this up, it's going to freeze and it's going to turn up the mix. Let's also change the window to a reverse ramp so it kind of sounds plucky. In fact, we'll bring it a little bit closer to a square wave and also put the smooth at like 2%. Let's try this. So it's still doing the beginning of the bar. Let's move it to, let's turn up the quantize. Let's do eighth notes. There we go. All right. Now let's work this freeze button now. All right, well, thank you so much for watching. I certainly hope you've enjoyed learning about how to use a Refractalizer FX. I hope this has been helpful. You can always hit us up on our Discord or shoot us an email on our support line, or even just hit me up on Instagram or any preferred method. We're always around to answer your questions and to provide any support if you're trying to do something special. Have fun out there, and happy granulating with Refractalizer and Refractalizer FX by DataMind Audio.